This is Rising Phoenix Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Rhodes. This podcast is for men struggling with an unwanted divorce. I interview experts on divorce, mental health, and I provide insights gained from my own divorce journey. You are not alone. Join me. Joining me today is Mr. Larry Bilotta. Larry, let's just jump right into this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my little bit is I lived 27 years in a marriage made in hell. In the 28th year, I fell in love with my wife, and the reason I did is because I fell in love with myself. And so that's really what all my story is. My story is when you love yourself, everything changes in your life.
Hmm.
So that's really what the focus of Larry Bilotta is. And so my big energy drive is the energy of your life is more important than the behavior of your life. What you do in your body, what you say with your mouth is behavior. What you do in energy is what you think, what you imagine, and what you believe. And that changes everything when you start to learn how to use that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm interested to dive into that.
Okay.
Um, But before we get into any of that, I think I wanted to focus, and maybe this is relevant. I'm sure it probably is in some ways. I really want to kind of hone in on midlife crisis. It's something that um, I think I dealt with in terms of my ex-wife. I think she went through one. It's something that I've never addressed on this podcast. I've always wanted to. So, um, can we dive into that a little bit? Like, I think one of the recommended talking points was how do you know if your spouse is in a midlife crisis? So let's dive into that topic. What does that mean? What is maybe we start there. What is a midlife crisis?
Okay, so we got the media's story, and when I say media, I'm talking about a very big blot of people.
Right.
The people are trying to write a story about the subject of midlife crisis, and when the media and movies and television talk about midlife crisis, they talk about a time of turmoil that a person's going through trying to find themselves. And so they think of it as an exploration period of just searching and thinking deeply and those kinds of things. So what do I see in the real world? In the real world, I have people calling me because I talk about midlife crisis all the time. So the people who talk to me are people in midlife crisis. And so who talks to me? There's stayers and there's leavers. The
Mhm.
people who stay are the people who stay for their mind reasons, and the people who leave for their mind reasons. Okay, so the people who leave don't talk to me. They don't want to talk to me, right? The people who stay want to talk to me, and the reason they do is because they're trying to figure out what the hell happened, right? That's what they want to do. So when I talk to them, I want to help them get through what's happening to them and why it's happening. So why is it happening? Why is midlife crisis happening? And by the way, when I talk about the people who are going through the midlife crisis, what do I see and hear? I hear people telling me stories of so whether it's a man or it's a woman, the midlife crisis person they're married to is going through a really, really traumatic time where they're so turmoil loaded that they transform their personality. So if they hated smoking, they're smoking now. If they hated religion, now they're deeply religious. If they love religion, now they're an atheist, right? So they make these massive changes that just make no sense at all because all seeming logic, the ability to have a discussion, is all gone. And the reason is because the person's personality has changed. The person's personality, the way they think, the way they talk about themselves is dramatically different. And remember, we're talking about the three relationships on earth. Three relationships. Number one is work. Number two is family. Number three is intimate. So those three, everybody talks about, well, everybody treats me at work. They treat me really good. Why do you treat me so badly? Right? They talk that way because they don't know there's three relationships. The work relationships are the easiest relationships to manage. They're the lighter, easier, funnier relationship that everybody can handle and they can get upset about it, right? But work relationships are the easiest. The second relationships are family relationships, and that's where you now have biological connections. And when you have biological connections, there's more room for misunderstanding and struggle. But then the intimate relationship, special case. Intimate relationship is you now get in deeply involved with somebody and they're now connected on all kinds of ways. And because you're so connected, so deeply connected, emotionally connected, energetically connected, you're now just exposing things in your life that are actually originating in childhood. And what happens in childhood, events happen. A bunch of stuff happened. It turns out you're awake 16 hours a day for 10 years. That's 53,000 hours. That's 53 hours, 53,000 hours of waking time that you're going through that you don't remember a whole lot of things,
Mm,
but some things stick with you. Why? Because they're emotionally charged. And
mm,
emotionally charged events stick with you. They stay with you. They bother you. They trouble you. So when I'm talking to a stayer is talking about how this person was, how this woman was, how this man was. And so this is a podcast for men. So let's just talk about women. So what do I do? For 15 years, I've been talking to people about a scale I have, which goes 10 to 0. So 10 is when you're raised at a 10, you're raised at the best place where you have a mom and dad who stays together and a mom and dad who love each other and they love you and teach you. So that's a 10. Now, if they argue, if they have a struggling relationship, maybe you're a 9, or a little lower, you're an 8. So that's 10, 9, 8. That's purpose. All right. So now they're raising you for purpose. And now if you don't get there, then you go into the twilight zone. That's 7, 6, 5. So 7, 6, 5 is the twilight zone because that's where the parents don't really raise you. And the reason they don't is because they're kind of struggling to survive. They're struggling with their own issues and they
mm,
want to stay on their drugs. They want to stay on their music. They want to stay on their fun, and whatever they want to do, but they're not raising you. So
mm,
that puts you in the twilight zone. And then below that is chaos. It goes 5 to 0.
mm.
Now, I've been talking about this scale. What 5 to 0, by the way, is abandonment, abuse, neglect. And the more you have those three, the lower you go, right? So I've had people, I've been interviewing people for just thousands of people, and I've got this historical marker. And the historical marker is I've never had a 9 married to an 8 call me, ever. No
Hmm.
nines, married to 8s. So we established the guy's childhood is 9, and we established that his wife is an 8, and I've never had that discussion, not one time. So what do I have? I have 9s married to 2s. I
Mm.
have 10s married to 0s. That's what I have. And so I've got 15 years of evidence that proves that what makes a midlife crisis? It's abandonment, it's abuse, it's neglect. And that's what traumatizes children. And so what happens then? Well, then it gets stored in the mind, stays there until you're somewhere between 35, 45 years old. And when that happens, you have this pressure coming. And the pressure comes up, it's trying to grab your conscious mind and take it down and get it out of the way because this subconscious mind, the messages of childhood are trying to come for you. And so that's what creates the trauma. Why do these personalities change so much? Because this person has been resisting them for years. They've been
Okay, hey,
resisting them
I,
through
I
their
gotta,
20s.
I gotta stop you because this is revelationary to me. So, are you
Okay.
saying that midlife crisis is a manifestation of undealt with trauma?
That's right. All the time, over and over again. I
Wow.
keep proving it with these people over and over again
Okay,
because
okay.
well,
Hang on. Okay, hang on. Okay, so this is just blowing my mind
okay.
because I've dealt with this stuff, personally, okay. So I want to back up also though to your unbalanced, a 9 with a 2. Is that normal?
No,
Um,
no, it's not normal.
what causes that? Why does that occur? Why do
Okay,
people
so
so opposite on that spectrum attract each other?
there's two reasons. A person raised at a 9 is raised by parents who are very ethical. They have very good values. And one of the good values they have is we need to take care of the less fortunate.
Hmm.
And so the child sees them going to churches and donating and spending time. Some goes extreme as becoming missionaries, right? So we're always taking care of the less fortunate, right? What is the less fortunate? The people with all the heartache in the world, right? And so they're going to take care of them. Well, that child sees that. And do you know what they do in their mind as a child? They say, well, you know, if I'm supposed to take care of the less fortunate, why don't I marry the less fortunate? And now they have a need to go take care of a 2 or a 0.
All right. And this is probably, I think I know the answer, but I say it all the time. I always ask questions that I think I know the answer to. Is the secure? Not I can't remember what you called the 7, 8s, 9s. I can't remember what you called them, or
Those are
the
purpose kids. Those are
8s, 9s,
purpose kids.
10s. Do the
Purpose kids.
purpose? Are the purpose kids? I guess it, yeah, I guess it wouldn't matter. But are the eight, nines, and tens male or female, or does it matter? Or there's no pattern? And same with the other end of the spectrum, male, female, or there is no pattern.
So actually, what you're asking is you're asking what happens to men, what happens to women, what happens to girls, what happens to boys, right?
Correct.
So when we talk about parents, if parents, even 10 parents, 10, 9 parents, they can have favorites. They can have a child that is most like them, and they will literally favor that child in all kinds of weird ways. I've heard terrible stories, weird ways, and they put them on pedestals.
Mm,
And there's all kinds of ways to do that. So when a boy gets put on a pedestal, he gets put on a pedestal of a male champion,
mm,
of a kid who can do no wrong. If a girl gets put on a pedestal, she becomes a queen or a princess,
mm,
and she gets treated like that. And so when children are treated like this pedestal experience, they're really distorted
mm.
because there's something in the mind that knows, there's not something not good about this, right? So when we talk about boys and girls, we're really talking about how girls are treated and how boys are treated. They're treated differently.
Mm.
But when parents play favorites, bad things are going to happen
Right.
all the time, and you can depend on that.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I've heard so many stories of favorites that
So there's no real, like, I mean, which makes sense because everyone is different and all that kind of stuff. So there's no women are nines and men are twos
no,
type of
no,
situation.
no. There's no
Okay.
gender related
Okay.
location, right?
Okay.
The location we really want to know. And in fact, if you're meeting somebody for the first time, the most, and people don't listen to I harp on this all the time. The most important question that you can ask early on, first date kind of material, is, when you consider your career success in your life, how much do you credit to your mom and dad? That's the most important question. When you
Okay.
consider all your career and life success, well, how much do you credit to your mom and dad? The most important first date question. Well, why is it the most important? And now remember what I'm saying. This is the most important question. But why is it the most important question? Because when a person answers on a first date, they have to decide to lie and distort or to be honest and tell the truth. Okay? So there's two kinds of responses, lie and truth, right? So if you're going to ask that at a bar, hey, when you consider your career and life success, how much do you credit to your mom and dad? Right? First choice that a person has is to lie. And when they lie, they're going to distort the story. Oh, yeah, that's right, right. Well, when you hear stumbling, you're listening to trouble.
Mm,
Because what are they doing? They're trying to figure out how to lie. And
mm,
when they lie, they stumble. Now, what does a true answer sound like? To my mom and dad, oh my God, they did everything for me, everything. I don't even know what I'd do if I didn't have them. They're my rock, they're my stability. See how strong and firm that answer is? When you hear that strongness and that firmness, then the next level is to go into their life and check out their siblings. Because if the siblings tell the same story, now you got a winner. And now you got something you can depend on because
So
that's what's going to happen at Christmas time. You're going to meet the siblings.
right. What if the answer is a strong answer in terms of there's no fumbling and stumbling, but it's hell no, my parents didn't do shit for me.
Okay, well there's a certainty, but that's also truth, right? And that
Sure.
truth is legitimate also because now we're talking about is what's called a bucker, Bucker, like the bucking bronco. And what does a bucker do? A bucker goes through three steps all their life. And so the first step is they feel from the mind, they feel the need to do the troubling thing. And like if the father was a cheater, they are maybe determined to not cheat and not be unfaithful, right?
Gotcha.
So they say, no, that's the first step. They get the message, they say, no, stop, I'm not doing that. The
Right.
second step they do is they choose a new value. Now, where do they get their new value? Well, they get it from something that they admire. Yeah, a coach, a teacher, a priest, something, and
Right.
they choose a value. And that's the second thing. And by the way, this is a lot of energy you're using when you choose that value as the second step. The
Mm,
third step is they have to act that value out. Well, that's a lot of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, day after day after day. Well, why are they doing it? Because they're living in resistance to their mind. Living in resistance. I'm not doing that. I'm going somewhere else. And so, how do they do that? They do it with determination.
Mm.
And when you live in determination, it's just going to wear you out. It just does wear you out, right? So the only thing that I'll throw this little idea out there. The only way you can start to relieve yourself from the pressures of childhood messages is to get to love. That's the only way you can get to it. So what is love? Love is 1,000 words in the English language that are good: caring, kindness, compassion, right? So I give people this assignment. I say, make two lists: 25 words of fear, 25 words of love, right? And so you look at the words, because we've got a lot of them on the internet, a lot of words. So I make a list of 25 words of love and 25 words of fear. And what am I looking at? I'm looking at living in the world of fear and looking at the world of love. And so when you have the 25 of each, now you can say, oh, I don't like that. And now I'm going to pivot. I'm going to make a sudden change, because picture a page that's got 25 words on the left and 25 words on the right. Those 25 words that you handpicked, and and said, I feel that. But like I feel like anger, for instance, as a negative word. When I feel that, I'm going to feel it, and I'm going to feel it when I see it in my list. When I look at my 25 words of love, I'm going to feel that too. I'm going to feel those words because I handpicked them. I threw out a bunch of words and I picked 25, but 25 represents 1,000. And that's a big deal. So when you see the 25 and 25, you're literally glancing at them and going, I'm not doing that. I'm doing that. I'm not living in fear. I'm living in love. Right. So when you do that, your life starts to get better. The more you focus on love, the more you start to heal. Because where is childhood trauma? Childhood trauma is in the world of fear. Where's the relief from that? The world of love.
I mean,
So where do we get there?
I can't. I mean, I'm so taken aback by this for a lot of reasons. One, I mean, it rings so true to me that your childhood is everything, right?
Okay.
It always goes back to your childhood.
Yeah, because
Um,
that's the original source code.
yeah, and it makes sense. I'm shocked in a little way though that I mean, now it seems so kind of obvious, but yeah, I'm gonna need some time to sit with this. Not right now, but I'm gonna need some time
Okay.
to sit with this. So let me go back to um the midlife crisis, and I think it's important because this is a podcast typically for men. I think it's important to sometimes highlight these differences, not because I want to be this like men are great or men suck or women are great or men. I think it's just interesting to me personally, and because of my experience with my ex. I want to highlight the difference. So, in your experience, what is the difference? And I know there's cliches, right? Oh, red sports car versus eat, pray,
Yes.
love, or what the fuck ever. But like, what have you seen the difference between how a man experiences a midlife crisis and how a woman does?
Okay, so let's start with men. What happens to a man when he's got this stuff? Remember, he's been a bucker for because in my interviews with stayers, I've heard of men who are scientists, teachers, coaches, priests, all kinds of things I've heard. And so these people are living productive lives. They really are amazing because they've accomplished amazing things. So when they're doing all this accomplishment, it the last thing in you is a personality change. That's the last thing on your list that's ever going to happen, right?
Right.
So since that's the last thing, what happened? The bucker goes 3 steps. Stop, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this instead. I'm going to act it out. Okay. If you picture that, that happens in the mind. Nobody can see that.
Right.
Nobody knows that. Wives don't know that. Husbands don't know. Nobody knows that. Right? What's going on privately? That's what I'm talking about. The thing that I see is this private 3 step process is the most important thing you've got to learn about. Because if you learn that they're going through the 3 step process, you've got to wake up and realize that this whole ground shaking thing is coming. And
Mm,
because it's coming, you've got to do something about it. And so what do we do about it before it comes, if that's even possible to do, if a person's that aware, is to start to talk about what happened in childhood.
mm,
The most important thing you can do before it happens. And so why do you do it? Because what you're doing is you're pulling up a little lid and releasing steam. You're releasing pressure when you talk about childhood in a civil, sane, together, like who you really are way. You're starting to ask the person talk about how your father treated you you were a little kid. Well, what kind of thing happened? Well, if we got a guy who was traumatized, talk about releasing steam. Oh God, I hated him. I just hated him.
Right.
Well, talk about why you hate him. Well, then now they could tell stories.
Mm.
What's in the story? The release of pressure is in the story. When they tell the details of that story, then the pressure's coming off. And that's really valuable. And I very, very rarely have heard people willing to do this. But to know that the bomb is coming, you got to do it and you got to release the pressure. And that means stories because stories release pressure.
Mm.
And so when that guy is talking about how his father made him feel, how he believes his father felt, what the whole dynamic of the relationship was, that stuff is all pressure releasing, and that's a really good thing to do before it starts. But after it happens, after the explosion happens, what happens to the guy? Well, now he can't think straight. He has little moments of sanity when he can start to think about, oh, what just happened to me? Right? Or he has lots of moments of insanity.
Mm.
And now he's living in his wrong mind in the world of fear. He's not living in his right mind. And so you can't talk to him.
Mm.
So I have this course about explaining midlife crisis, and one of the things I talk about in that course is that when that person is insane, you cannot talk to them because they're literally governed by a monster, and that monster makes no sense and is looking to battle you and fight you and condemn you and judge you all the time. Well, you don't need to step into that grinder. Don't
Mm-hmm.
do that. So release yourself from that and just step away because there's going to come a time when the monster's going to go on a break. And when the monster goes on a break, you got your husband back, right? So that's a really important thing to know. Okay, so that's the on the basis of pick my battles, right? Why do you pick your battles? Well, I'm not going to battle when the monster's got my husband. I'm not going to do anything, right? And now I start to realize, oh, okay, all right, so now it's time to be sane, but not yet.
Right.
Okay, so that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those sanity breaks,
Okay.
but that's after the collapse.
Right. And then so how does the female experience different in terms of their midlife crisis?
Okay, so women are more emotional than men are. Now, men feel emotion, but women actually feel emotion more graphically. They
Right.
feel it like a way, like when we're talking about the convoluted mind, when they go into their wrong mind, they literally do this is a strange phenomenon. The the husband becomes their parents. The women turn the husband into their parents. And now when they start to rattle off a thing like, I hated when you tried to control me and you made my life miserable by controlling me and making me not have any rights and privileges, right? Well, that turns out to be what her father did. That's what her mother did, right? Well, her mother did that, but now the guy did that. Like they can't tell the difference between the parents and the husband. They're the same thing. They just don't know how to make a switch. So they can't differentiate. Why can't they? Because they're in their wrong mind. And in the wrong mind, remember, the wrong mind represents 1,000 words in the English language that are bad. Criticism, blame, fault finding, judgment, all the bad words are in there, right? So those are not words, those are actually behind the words are energies,
Hmm.
the energies of the wrong mind. And that's what the midlife crisis person's living in. They're living in the energies of the wrong mind. And it's a terrible place to be. They don't want to be there. It's
How long does it typically? I think you mentioned, well, you didn't mention how long, what's typical? And is it different between men and women?
so men and women, for men it's longer, for women it's just 2 to 5 years, for women, men it's 5 to 7 years, right? And the reason it's different is because men don't want to come out of the hole as quickly
Right.
because they have a contentment that they kind of settles in on them,
Yeah.
but the women don't get so content so long. And so they're more willing to rush through changes that men are not. Men just go slower and women go faster. And that's really the only male female difference we can actually single out.
So let's say you've experienced this. Oh, I don't know if I want to go down that road. Let's talk about, okay, I'll switch because I was gonna get, yeah, I was gonna talk about something else. In terms of action during these moments, is infidelity you see what I'm doing there? I'm pivoting.
Yeah,
Uh,
yes.
is infidelity a pretty common thing during a midlife crisis for those going through it?
So what is infidelity? Infidelity is a message in your mind that says that the moment you're unhappy, you can switch partners. That's
Right.
just a real core idea. Like, well, that's perfectly fine. I should
Right.
just switch partners while I'm married to this other person, right? Because I'm not happy with this, I'm going to be happy with that, right?
Yeah.
So that's the whole idea of switching, right? But in society loaded with churches, loaded with morality in society, okay? Switching partners is absolutely condemned,
Right.
judged, and criticized, right?
Right.
Well, in that environment of judgment and criticism for switching and infidelity, this person is living under the judgment of all of that pressure, the societal pressure of churches and schools and morality and all that, right? So you can't switch. You can't switch. You have to stop this marriage and go start that marriage. Now, just do it right and just go make the switch, right?
Right.
Well, there's people who can't make the switch because they're chaos kids. And so when we talk about chaos kids, when we're talking about tens and we're talking about zeros, well, we're actually talking about values. What's the value of a 10? The value of a 10 is like commitment, loyalty, service, kindness, humility, acceptance, sharing, right? I have a book called The Millionaire Mind. And in that book, The Millionaire Mind, they go into marriage. And they go into marriage, and when they establish in marriage, is that all these values of these wonderful the commitment and loyalty and all these things, those are what the millionaire mind marriages have. They have really good values because that's what the book is explaining. Really good value people get together, they marry, and they create great wealth. That's what the millionaire mind is talking about, right?
Hmm.
So if we start to realize a 10 is loaded with all these good values, what's a zero got? Well, a zero's got all the values of fear, all the values of fear, like selfishness, lying, survival, gossip, stealing, defensiveness, worry. All that stuff is a part of the way they live. Now, do they know anything else? No. That's their value system installed when they were children, right? And so what are they going to do? They're going to do the values they were given. And you can't blame them for that. You can't fault find them. You can't take the societal judgment system of goodness and morality and judge that person. You can't do that because they're just living on their values, and their values happen to be based on fear, and they're living in the world of fear. And so now that they're living in the world of fear, they need a person to be able to accept where they are. They need to allow that person to, like, whatever turmoil you have to go through, you have to go through it. But now in there, there's a person. And this is something I learned from stayers. Stayers all sense that there's a person in there. There's a person in there who's still the person I know, the person I love. And that's what those people are. I call them the people who love their chaos kid. That's what they are. And so women have the love of the chaos kid. And by the way, their friends and relatives want them to throw their chaos kid away. But they love their chaos kid. Men who marry the chaos kids, they love their chaos kid. And they don't care how bad they are. They don't care how mean they are. They don't care how cruel they are. They love their chaos kid. And they're going to stick with them. And does the chaos kid deserve it? Well, according to the world of morals and values, no, they don't deserve it, right? But the people who love their chaos kid do love them. And that's actually who I work with. I work with those people who love their chaos kid.
Okay.
And so,
So yeah, I know this was in some of the talking points. What is a chaos kid? I got lost in
okay.
that.
All right. So remember the scale I'm using, 10 to
Yes.
0?
Yes.
What's a chaos kid? 5 to 0 is where chaos kids are.
Okay.
Where they come from? Chaos kids. Well, they were kids who took in chaos of abandonment, abuse, and neglect. And when they come in, when that abandonment, abuse, and neglect comes in, they take in that chaos, not knowing how to filter it, because children don't know how to filter
Right.
those things, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
they let it in, and when it comes in, it stays. It comes into the mind and it stays. It just stays there. And what's it waiting for? It's waiting for the time. And by the way, let's talk through the stages of life. In childhood, those 10 years, 53,000 hours, that's when it enters, right? And then what happens is the teen years come, another 10 years. And what happens in the teen years? Well, Teen is the testing years. That's the years where the teenagers try, like, what is this? What the hell is this? I don't like this, right? Or whatever they're going to explore and fight and belligerent and all that stuff is happening in the teen years. What happens in the 20s? Well, the 20s are the pinnacle of life. That's the indestructible years. When you're in your 20s, you got life by the tail and you can do anything because you're going to live forever, right? What happens in the 30s? In the 30s, you're like, what happened to my 20s? Something's wrong. I don't like this. Why does that hurt? And so all this happening in the 30s is where the beginning of the midlife crisis starts to be discovered. Why is it discovered there? Because when you were bucking those messages, you're not able to buck so good in your 30s. You can't say stop. I'm doing this instead. No, you
Right.
can't do that. And so because the 30s and 40s are where you're starting to realize your frailty and your weakness, that's where the place where it's going to come. It's going to come in the 30s and 40s. And so that's that condition that was built in childhood, tested in the teen years, indestructible. That's why I have no people in my program in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody in their 20s is ever in my program because they
Yeah.
can't. They
Yeah.
can't do it. They're indestructible.
Yeah.
But when they're 30s and they're 40s, now all things are possible. Now they can learn. Now they can be willing to hear. And so when we talk about people who go through the midlife crisis, they have to feel the pain. And then the person has to have something in them that says, oh, wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture? So they ask a question. What's wrong with this picture? What's wrong with what's happening to me? Well, what's not helping me? What's not serving me? What's not giving me what I want? And I think it's in me. And that's a real big revelation
How
for a midlife crisis person.
how is that common? Because I feel like what happens, or at least what happened to me, is that there was no reflection of self. It was an outwardly kind of like you described earlier, which is why I put my head down. Um, everything was my fault, right? My ex-wife was like, "It's you're the devil." And like the you're the reason for all ills in the world. I'm like, what the fuck? Um, how often does a person go through that and then have some self-reflection, or do they just keep, or I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess that's the question. How often do they go through it and go, huh, maybe I'm the problem here, or maybe I have some things I need to work on.
Okay, you can't ask a midlife crisis person to have a realization. You can't ask that.
Right.
It's too early. It's just too soon.
Yeah.
You know that in the media we have a thing called "Is it too soon?"
Right.
Where,
Right.
where they
Right.
ask this too soon, right? Is it too soon to ask the person to discover anything on their own? You can't teach him anything. You can't tell him anything. You can't make him anything. You can't force him to do anything,
Yeah.
right? Since that's true, like something has to happen to me as the person
Yeah.
who's there. I have to realize something. And what
Yeah.
do I have to realize? And this is where I come with the person who's the reactor and the person who's the creator. The person who's the reactor is a reactor to everything. They react to every mood, every attitude, every frequency change, every vibration change, everything. And they can feel everything because they're reactors and they're professionals. That means they're good at their job, right? So when they're reactors, they live that way and they can't learn when they're a reactor. They're busy reacting and punching what's out there in the world. They don't like it. And so when you got blamed for all that, that was pin the tail on the donkey, right?
Yep.
The children's game, right?
Yep.
Okay, so it happened to my parents. Here's the tail, and I'll pin it on this donkey over here, who's my husband, but I won't know the difference. I won't know that this tail belongs on this donkey. I won't know that, right?
Okay, wait, time out, time out. Okay, so then what I'm hearing is there is a inability to look back and place the blame where it belongs for some reason. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, let's don't say some reason. Let's say what is the reason? What
Okay.
is the reason that you cannot separate your husband from your parents?
Oh yeah, hit
Okay.
me.
Okay. So what happened to the parents? There might be a parent, like a mother, who was very judgmental and very critical and was looking for perfection. There could have been a father who was very weak and very soft and very, well, whatever mom says, right? That you could have been in that grinder. And that was a grinder,
I
right?
swear to Christ, it's like you're describing my fucking life, including my ex-wife. Keep going, sir. Drop some more knowledge.
Okay, so when you have that grinder that you're in, and a lot of people don't talk about that. Why is I have a strong mother and a weak father? That's a quick way to summarize it. I have a strong mother and a weak father. Well, now I'm a child. What should I latch on to? What should I feel? What like, oh, my mom gets a lot of things done.
Mm,
My mom's smarter than my dad. My dad's so weak. He just feels like nothing to me.
mm,
Like I like him and everything, but geez,
right.
the guy's got a problem, right? Well, that's what she feels as a child. And so she starts to identify with the mother.
Mm-hmm.
The mother that's very strong and very decisive, right? But the mother's also mean. The
Mm-hmm.
mother's cruel,
Mm-hmm.
right? So she loves the strength, but she's got to take the cruelty package as well, right?
Right.
All right. So now she marries, and she marries a husband who's probably a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's a nice guy, he's pretty easygoing, right? She's got the strength of her mother in her,
Mm,
right? And what does she start to do? She starts to do what her mother did.
mm,
And that starts to backfire. Now, that soft man, he has to decide what he's going to do.
mm,
What am I going to do? Am I going to take this woman as this powerhouse? Am I going to start to get weaker?
mm,
Well, it's a decision he's got to make. And you know what he typically makes as a soft-hearted man?
mm,
He's like, well, she seems to have all the answers. Let's do it her way. And so he gives up and then he gives in.
mm,
Now, as he does that, he gives in, he gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And now he starts to get, wait a minute, what have I done here? Right.
right.
And so he starts to bust out of a box, right? Well, in the meantime, that I'm talking about the parents now, okay? We got a girl who has those parents,
Mm,
and she identified with the strong mother, and she became a strong woman herself. But she carried the cruelty of her mother with her.
mm,
And now that disheartened this soft man she had, who used to be a really nice guy. But now what happens to him? He doesn't know who the hell he is. He doesn't know what happened to me. I used to be happy.
mm,
He doesn't know because I talk to these guys all the time and
yeah.
they're so surprised that I used to be happy. I remember being happy.
Right. Right. Right.
But what happened is they latched on to the strong woman because they were attracted to the strength. So that's what's happening behind the scenes,
Right.
right? When we start getting into the way these people were made, we have to actually look at the parents who made them.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now we know what the parents who made them, and so that's one combination: strong mother, weak father.
Yeah.
But there's another one: powerhouse man,
Mm,
yielding woman.
mm,
Powerhouse man, yielding woman. And now the male dominance, and let's put a daughter in that family, right? The daughter comes in that family. What does she get? She gets the powerhouse man.
mm,
And she gets the powerhouse man, and that gives her security, right? Because the powerhouse man, he knows all the answers. He knows what to do. He knows how to do it, and he makes stuff happen, right? So she starts to identify him as her protector.
mm,
And so who does she marry? A powerhouse man
mm.
to be the protector. Well, the powerhouse man's got his own problems, right?
Don't we all?
Because he's a chaos kid, right? And so that's what starts the cycle and keeps it going. And so that's really what we're living through. We're living through those mother-father combinations that
So, but yeah,
create the
but
children.
yes, but so why can't they? Why do they? And maybe I missed this, but why do they pin all of the blame on the husband? Why not take a look back and be like, my mom was this, my dad was that? Like, why do they?
Because that requires sense and sensibility.
Mm,
And so when the midlife crisis comes for you, you lose sense and sensibility.
that makes
You
sense.
cannot think straight. And because you cannot think straight, you can't think the logical thing, okay, this happened and how did that happen?
Right,
And
right.
why am I my
It's
husband this way, right? You
right.
can't make those connections.
Yeah, it's
'Cause
easier to just be like it's his fault.
yeah, because it
Interesting.
feels good. It gives you a rush, it gives you a high.
So you haven't had experience with levers, you said, in terms of midlife crisis, but I'll ask for your expertise and thoughts on someone leaves, they go through a midlife crisis, they leave, they go through their 5 to 7 years, either male or female. Do they come back out of it going, "Fuck, what did I do?" Or do they just be like, "Well, shit, that happened." Or like,
Uh,
what's
so it depends on how sensitive the person is. If a person was raised and their core being is made of sensitivity, they have the ability to start to figure out what went wrong and what was I responsible for and was it really my responsibility and because what happens in that as you're starting to sort out things as you're coming out of the midlife crisis, one of the things that can happen is you can latch on to the idea of being a victim. And when you latch onto the idea of being a victim, now you're going to stay in that longer. That's why
Yeah.
5 to 7 years. Why? Because you latched onto being a victim. And when you
Mm,
latch onto being a victim, there's actually a reward in being a victim. The
mm,
reward is I have been hurt and damaged by this person. And
right.
wow, that frees me from responsibility.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I'm really glad it wasn't my fault.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, yeah. I see that a lot in men. In a support group that I run, where it's they stay in that victim mindset for a very long time because even if they were the ones left, even if she cheated and all those things,
Yes.
you still have to bear some responsibility,
But
and it's easier to not do that, right?
so when we look about why does the guy hold on to that victim idea? Because when you get a drug high, it's literally a drug high. When you get a drug high for being a victim, it feels like a rush, like a little 10-second right, like that.
Right.
And so when you feel like a victim, like, oh man, I was really hurt. Boy, that was mean of her, right? Ooh, boy, that felt just, right? I was so unfair, right? Well, the love of unfairness is a drug high.
Mm.
Isn't that weird? The love of unfairness, like I've been so wrong and I am so good because of it. That's the high.
That's
I was so wrong and I'm so good because of it. That little thing, that little 10-second high, it becomes a drug that you got to come back for. I got to come back for more. And so you latch on to the victim, you get the little drug high, and then you do it again. And it doesn't last very long. And so you got to go do it again. And so once you go chasing drug highs of being a victim, you don't realize, well, I'm in a drug system. I'm addicted.
is that why people dive into a next relationship almost immediately sometimes so they can go through another shitty experience so
That's what
they can remain
that's
a victim?
that's exactly why it keeps on happening because I'm on the victim high drug. And because remember what the victim high drug is made of. Like you treated me really bad, but I'm a really good person because of the way I took it. I'm a really good person. That's the high right there. And so you don't actually think the words that I'm using right now. You
Right.
don't think those words,
Sure, no,
right?
no, no.
But it's just all an emotional like, oh, that feels good.
So it bears the question, are there any fucking healthy people in the world? Because
So let's take about 10 to 0 because I've been using the scale for 15
yeah,
years. Right. So what happens in a 10? In a 10, parents who have good values have sudden moments when they just kind of disconnect from their sanity.
sure.
Like, and they do things that they're really sorry for, but they don't apologize. They're
Mm.
tens, but they don't apologize. They just kind of like, no, I didn't do that.
Right,
Right?
right, right.
Well, the kid is taking this in, right? And so what's the job? The job is I can't say I'm sorry. And when I can't say I'm sorry, I can't change my mind. Well, I had parents who couldn't say they're sorry. I'm a 10. I
Right.
got the great values, but my parents couldn't say they're sorry. They couldn't apologize. On the other hand, I have a 10 or a 9 who could apologize. Now that's the best to get. Parents who say, like, I really reacted badly to you, and I'm really sorry that I did that because, and they tell a story to the kid. And what is the kid now hearing in their mind? They're hearing like, oh, so when you say you're sorry, it kind of fixes everything and resets everything. Well, that's a real mature kid, isn't it?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Well, there's a lot of people don't get that. They don't get parents who know how to say they're sorry, and they
Yeah.
don't get a reset. They don't know how to reset their whole personality and reset their mind and readjust, right? And the other thing I would talk about with tens, 10, 9, and eights is if they got really good parents who could say they're sorry and apologize to each other, they actually showed humor and goodwill.
Mm.
And because they showed humor and goodwill, that makes the child very resilient.
Mm.
And now they're really, really good because they can take so much abuse and they can bounce back because
Mm.
they took it and they saw it. And they go, oh, this is what it's like to bounce back. Mom bounced back, dad bounced back, right? I can bounce back. And so they have humor and they have goodwill and they have a sense of humor that says, this is not a problem,
Mm.
right? Well, chaos kids don't have any of that.
Mm.
They don't have any, they don't hold grudges. They don't have any of that flexibility.
How many? I know again, a potentially unfair question. Percentage wise, how many of the chaos kids are running around? Uh, we'll say America versus the ones that are 6 and above. Like it seems like an awful lot of fucked up people are out there. A lot of emotionally immature people are running around. Am I crazy? Is that it feels like there's a lot more of the fucked up version than the 6, 7, 8, 9s, and 10s.
Well, we have to notice that the media loves trouble. They
That's
love trouble. They go look for it, right?
that's a good
And they
point.
report on it and tell stories about it,
That's a
right?
good point. Yeah.
Because the media is focused on trouble and difficulty, that's all we're now seeing that because they come and show it to us, right? And so that would kind of distort your view of how many
Right.
people are screwed up,
That's true.
right? But it turns out that behind the scenes where the media is not looking, there's a lot of kind, wonderful people there,
Yeah.
right? Who don't call attention to themselves, who don't promote themselves, right? They're really kind, caring, loving people who know how to forgive and forget. Well, those people are completely unseen, right? You can't really know them. But from my own time with people on, because I talk to some people around the world, all the cultures, by the way, right?
Mm. Right.
I'm talking about, and there's no difference between any of us.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you're from Bangladesh or from Madagascar, I don't care who you're
Right.
from, right? You have the same stuff. We all have the same stuff.
Yeah.
So we're all trying to find a way to be loved. All of us are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a true statement. Yeah. I want to talk about one more thing. We started talking about infidelity a little bit. It's one of the things that was in your notes that I'm curious of for reasons. Is infidelity something that's passed down from generation to generation? Like if my ex-wife, let's say if my ex-wife was a cheater, does that mean both of my daughters or either of my daughters are going to be cheaters as well?
So let's look at the thing called gene, right? What do we know about genes? Genes carry information. And so one of the reasons we latch on to genes is because genes are biological. We love biology. We love the body. And because we love biology, we love the body, we latch on to the idea of genes. Because when you have a gene, wow, you're screwed, right?
Yeah.
So there's a book by Bruce Lipton called The Biology of Belief that establishes that, with his research, he shows that genes don't govern anything.
Hmm.
They are literally suggestions.
Hmm.
And literally, when you start to throw it, so somebody used the phrase a cheating gene. Do you have a cheating gene?
Right.
Right? Right? Is cheating in the biology, right? So that's not the way it transfers. The way it transfers is your father has the need to cheat on his wife, your mother, right?
Right.
And he's got that need and he pursues it secretly.
Hmm.
Let's say you don't know anything about it. That energy is being given off by your father because there's 7 invisible energies. There's mood, there's attitude, there's frequency, there's vibration. All that stuff is coming out of you all the time. And
Right.
because it's coming out all the time, the children can feel it. And if the children can feel you cheating and being dishonest and hiding, they feel that energy and they pick it up. And now it installs in their mind as a set of instructions.
Hmm.
And so I've seen a phenomena that men who've got that cheating message, they attract women like nobody's business. I mean, they just like gorgeous women. They attract like how do you do that? Right?
Hmm.
I got the cheating gene. Got it from my dad.
Right.
Right? But that's what they've got. They've got the ability to attract, and because this is all energy, the energy of my father is in me, going out all the time. When I get around a woman who's got the same message from her father or mother, that becomes an attraction. Like, ooh, who's this? This feels good, right?
Right. Right.
But what's really happening? Are they looking at bodies? No.
Yeah.
That's an excuse. They're feeling energy. See, he feels the energy of her and she feels the energy of him. And that's literally attracting them. And so if a guy is married and he's got that message from his father, he's going to start attracting women like that.
Yeah.
And the women are going to start coming. And when they come, they're going to start saying, ooh, I like this guy. I'm taking him for myself. But you're going to have to break up a family to do it.
Right. Right.
I don't care about that.
Right.
I care about myself. I
Yeah.
care about this guy I want. I want him. He's a great earner.
Right.
Until she'll rattle off some stuff about why she wants him, right? But that's really what the stay-at-home mom is having to deal with.
Hmm.
She's married a man whose father instructed him that this is how you attract women you want. You go somewhere else. And it's okay.
Interesting.
It's absolutely okay. And so we could call that the cheating gene, but it's not a gene,
Yeah.
right? It's actually a cheating instruction.
Mm.
It's an
I mean,
instruction in the mind.
I suppose that's true of like anything you do as a parent, right? Um, it's an instruction, right? How you live your life in some ways,
Yes.
right, is an instruction to your children. But they can be the bucker, right? They can make other decisions than their parents did, right? I mean, I think for sure I did. I think I'm a completely different parent, completely different. Like I have a career versus my I grew up in a trailer, so there was no like. I mean, I love my dad. He passed sadly a long time ago, but he was a good man. But we're nowhere near the same in a lot of ways. So I think I just want to make that point that, and maybe it's for myself because I I don't think that your parents while they have some obviously influence, very strong influence, they set the groundwork in a lot of ways. Change is possible, and that's one of the last things I want to talk about before I get to the last question. Can you go as a person from a 0 or a 1 or whatever, a 2 to 8, 9, 10?
Okay, so that's talking about changing location. Actually, I was on a phone last night with a guy who was in my program. He's been in 3 years, and he said that he was a two, and today he's a nine.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay, and why did he say that? Because he transferred this energy that he had, this two energy, and it literally healed it. He healed the energy of his childhood.
Hmm.
And when he heals the energy of his childhood, he releases it. And that has a lot to do with living. You're born in fear. Your parents were born in fear, and you were born in fear, and now you're leaving fear and going to love. That transfer is a transfer of energy. It's not a transfer of bodies, it's a transfer of energy. And because you're changing your energetic signature, you're literally moving into a love orientation because you make the switch. And so he made that switch. And so he's got a really happy marriage now because he had a very unhappy marriage because he was married to a chaos kid,
Hmm.
right? So he was a chaos kid, and he was married to a chaos kid. But what he did is he started to do the ideas of changing ideas from fear ideas to love ideas. Because it's a world. 1,000 words represents the world of fear. 1,000 negative, horrible words, right? 1,000 wonderful words represents the world of love, right? And so when you move into that world, you're energetically just you're giving off a different vibration.
Hmm.
And so he did that. So he went from a two to a nine. And
Interesting.
that's the guy who actually talked to me last night.
Well, I'm glad to hear those success stories. What's Larry? What's the best way for people to find you and what you do? How to get in touch with you? Maybe sign up for your program, all that kind of good stuff.
Okay, so if people want to see what I'm doing in terms of structure, it's youcansavethis marriage.com. And if they want my like background kind of stuff and stuff I do, they can go on to my YouTube channel, LarryBilotta.com, or Larry Bilotta on YouTube. Just search it. And then you could go to LarryBilotta.com. That's where the rest of the world is, where
Awesome.
the
Well,
rest of the Larry Bilotta world is.
I got you. Well, thanks, Larry, for doing this. I really appreciate it. As you know, the last question is, what words of wisdom would you impart to a man just beginning his divorce journey?
So when you're starting to leave, you're leaving for a whole bunch of reasons. It could be some of the reasons we talked about. But when you're leaving, what you've got to say is, what am I and where am I going? What am I and where am I going? And when you ask the question, what am I? That's not an easy question to answer. What am I? And just forget you're a body. You're not a body. You are a spiritual being. You're living in a body. You're actually a soul living in a body. So since you ask the question, what am I? Like, what are my values? Becomes the next question. What do I value? And where am I going? Am I going to a better version of me? Am I going to another person as a destination? Like, am I going to that person because I need to get something from that person? Because if I do, I really need to slow down. Because if I'm going to that person because I need to get something, I need to get beauty. I need to get strength. I need to get money. If I need to get anything, I'm in trouble. Okay. Because my problem is not what I'm going to get. My problem is myself because I really don't really know who I am. And because I don't know who I am, I'm not going to make a good choice when I get there because I'm trying to get something.
Amen. Well, thank you, Larry, so much for doing this. I really
Okay.
appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching and or listening. If you are feeling alone on this journey, please join our Discord server. Becoming a Phoenix is not a solitary act. It is one achieved through community. Our Discord server is just that, a community of men fighting to survive, thrive, and rise from their divorce. Go to risingphoenixpodcast.com/Discord for information on how to join and what is contained in our Discord server. Please join us.